Come be a part of Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics with your host, Dr. Ed Holliday. Hear the voices of liberty speaking all across America. Doc Holliday provides thought-provoking interviews and commentary about the issues and actions that are afflicting this country and what we need to do to get America back on track. Get fired up, get inspired, get on board with Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics right now.
And here we go.
Once again, that's the sound of rock cracking. You've got Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics. You're listening to us right here on webtalkradio.net, and I'm your host, Dr. Ed Holliday. So thank you for listening to us in Web Talk Radio. And this week we have an exciting show. We have the Honorable Alan Dershowitz. Now, he's been on talk shows for years. He's a Harvard professor. He taught Harvard many years. Let's see. Looks like he taught Harvard Law School from 1964 through 2013. And he's a regular media contributor. You see him on all different cable networks and news programs. And he's sometimes a political commentator and legal analyst. But he is a supporter of the nation of Israel. He's very prominent in making sure that Israel is protected and an ally of the United States. And he's known for taking on high-profile and often unpopular causes and clients over the years, including when he is a Democrat. He's a liberal Democrat, but he got on the case that helped the defense of Donald Trump in his first impeachment trial. And this is something I wanted you to know. We want to try to get Alan on this show, and we've got him. We're going to talk to him in just a few minutes, but I want to make sure you understand this is part of our coverage. Remember last month we had a show entitled, and you can go back in the archives and listen to it, about is free speech fading away? It is. And in fact, Alan Dershowitz, he's got a new book, and the book is called The Case Against the New Censorship. And it's very enlightening, and he is so knowledgeable. Within his brain is such a law that's packed in there, and he is very concerned about free speech in America. So we're glad that we got him on. And before we get him dialed up and talk to him here, I want to play this one little clip of a song many of you probably know.
Oh, I've seen fire and I've seen rain, seen sunny days that I thought would never end. I've seen lonely times when I could not find a friend, but I always thought that I'd see you, baby, one more time again.
Now, of course, that's James Taylor, and what a powerful song, big hit that was. And yet, what if he was talking about the Constitution? Are we ever going to see the Constitution again if we lose freedom of speech? If the left gets control, the extreme left, the socialist, if the Marxists finally take over, will we ever see free speech? If we don't, we won't see the Constitution. What this nation has thrived on is free speech. Even people we oppose, even those that we don't want to hear and we don't think they have a good message, they have a right to speak. And it's so important in this day and age of social media. And we see where the President of the United States was knocked off Twitter and banned, and Facebook banned. And then where does that leave us if we don't have free speech in America? Well, that's exactly why we wanted Alan Dershowitz on this show. Yes, he's a liberal. Yes, he's he's voted for Hillary Clinton. I'm sure he voted for Joe Biden. I don't know. I hadn't heard him say on that, but I'm sure he did. He always seems to vote Democrat. And yet he defended Donald Trump in the first impeachment that Trump had. And he is very concerned about free speech. And like I said, this show, Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics, we've tried over the years to get people to understand how important it is for free speech. And we learn from free speech. And some people that shouldn't be on the air may be on the air. But we have free speech, and we need it. And we're losing it under the threat of these big media companies like Facebook and Twitter and Google, YouTube. And you know what? They got power because of something called the Section 230. This was going back to the early days of the internet, how to keep the internet going, how to help it thrive. And the Section 230 was a part of legislation that kept these big media companies from having to be responsible, can't be sued. And yet that was so they could have a platform and let everybody speak. As long as it's legal, it should be on there. And yet they're being thrown off, thrown away, putting Facebook time out, being banned forever. So what does that do for free speech? Well, I want to ask Alan Dershowitz what he thinks about that. And he covers these things in his new book, Case Against the New Censorship. So let's dial him up right now, and let's talk to the world-renowned Alan Dershowitz. On this week's show, we have Professor Alan Dershowitz, and he's got a new book, The Case Against the New Censorship. Welcome to Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics, Alan. And
sounds like a great show. What a terrific title. Happy to be on with you.
Over the years, I'll have to say that I've watched you, and I've seen you be most consistent and standing up for the Constitution. I haven't always...
That's why I've made so many enemies.
Well,
the people on the left don't like me when the Constitution doesn't support them, and I say so. And the people on the right don't like me when the Constitution doesn't support them, and I say so. Everybody wants the Constitution to support them all the time, and that's just not the way it happens.
Well, I really believe history is going to smile on you. I don't know, a year, a decade, 2 decades, or how long, but you have been consistent. I have a liberal friend that we write in a paper, a point counterpoint, and I happened to mention that I would be interviewing you, and he said, well, Alan's nothing but a turncoat. He used to love you.
No, that happens all the time, but I'm glad you have a point counterpoint, because that's the American tradition, to have all sides of every issue presented. But people on the left think I'm a turncoat because I didn't join the campaign to end freedom of speech and due process for those they disagree with. When I defended values they agreed with, the left loved me, and the right didn't like me so much. Now that the values that I support sometimes come out in favor of the right and not the left, it's if you're a person of principle, you're not going to have a lot of fair weather friends, because the fair weather friends will fall away.
Well, thank you for standing up for the Constitution, and I believe what your book is, reading through your book, Case Against the New Censorship, I guess one of the sentences that stuck out, and it's a wonderful book. I want everybody to buy it, all the listeners. It's up to date with what we need in our country today. But you had a sentence that said, during the past several years, the spirit of liberty has been weakened by a growing acceptance of censorship, especially among young people on the left. Well, could you elaborate? I mean, I see this, but I would like to get your opinion on what's going on and why are we weakening the free speech?
Well, I think it's because people on the left, particularly young people, think they know the truth with a capital T. And what's their truth? Their truth is that every time a policeman shoots a black person, the policeman is, of course, guilty of the crime. And, every time that a woman accuses a man of anything, the woman is telling the truth and the man is guilty, and every election is fair, and every vaccine is perfect. And I happen to agree with a lot of those principles, but I think they're debatable. And I think we ought to have debates about these issues. I'll give you an example.
Okay.
The former Bobby Kennedy, the son of the former Attorney General, Bobby Kennedy Jr., who's an environmental lawyer, challenged me to debate him on vaccines. We have different views. I'm more supportive of vaccines. He's more skeptical of vaccines. We had a great debate, and thousands of people listened and watched, and then YouTube took it down. They said, it's okay for you to listen to Dershowitz's side of the debate. He's right. But Kennedy, no, we don't want you to listen to Kennedy's views. Well, I don't want that. I don't want my debate to be one-sided. I don't want to win by Google declaring me the victory, YouTube declaring me the victor. I want to win or lose depending on what people think of my ideas. And so we have to have all sides of every issue presented. And I think a lot of young people don't want to hear both sides of other issues presented. They don't care about free speech unless it's free speech for me but not for thee. The same is true of due process. But we're going to have free speech and due process. It has to be for me, for thee, and for everybody else. Well,
Alan, you just summed that up so well. And that's in school and in college and seeing all the different times I was in school, I loved debates. And I thought it was good. I always learned. I learned from both sides, listening. And that's what I've heard you over the years, over the decades. And you've made me, sharpen my mind and look in and dig into things. And that's what a debate does. And yet I see it over and over where a conservative comes on campus and they shout him down or her down and not even let them speak. And that's just so anti-American, what I feel like. And yet, how do you see, we talk about this trend, but how does that trend reverse?
It's not going to be easy because the old censorship was easy to fight against. You just went to court. And the First Amendment was on our side. And so we won. I litigated a lot of First Amendment cases in the last half of the 20th century, and I won almost all of them. And because we had the First Amendment on our side. But when it's private censors, when it's big tech or private universities that are censoring, it's much harder to bring them to court. And so we have to come up with new methods of defending free speech, and that's what I tried to do in the case against the new censors. And one of the first things we have to do is amend Section 230, this notorious section, which basically says to the big tech people, look, you can censor all you want, and you can pick and choose, but nonetheless, we're going to give you exemption from any kind of a lawsuit for defamation. That's not what was intended. What was intended was to give them exemption only if they acted like platforms, if they allowed everything legal on the air. But now that they're picking and choosing and deciding which side of a debate they want people to hear, they shouldn't get the exemption of 230, and I hope that will be a change to make that happen. We have to make sure that also people listen to talk shows like yours, podcasts like mine called The Dersh Show, books, radio, alternative ways of getting the message across. When they took down my debate on YouTube, we put it up on Rumble, which is an alternative platform that doesn't censor. So we have to find ways of fighting back against this new censorship.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that about Rumble, and there are other access platforms out there, and I hope new technology will even challenge what Facebook and Twitter is trying to do. Alan, let me just jump right in here just a minute. And in just a minute, I want to ask you about Israel and what's going on in Israel. But first, let me just remind everybody, you're listening to Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics. You're listening to us right here on webtalkradio.net. And we're also talking with Alan Dershowitz, the world-renowned attorney that taught at Harvard for decades and has been on talk shows for decades. And he's taught Americans many things. And we got him on, and we're going to ask him a couple more questions, and one about Israel coming up. But let me remind you also that Doc Holliday has a book out also called Bedrock Truths. You can get that book, and it was written by Dr. Ed Holliday, Dr. Alveda King, and Dr. Alex McFarland. And you can get that book by going to www.docholliday.org. Holliday's got 2 L's in it. So www.docholliday.org. and we'd be glad to get that book out to you if you want to purchase that book. There's a few more, some things we've had before on there, so if you see something you like, order that book. We'd love to get it out to you, and we're glad that you're listening to us. We got some new listeners coming in every week, and most of you around the country, United States, but we do have some people around the world. Sometimes you may have to get the book off Amazon. We only ship in the United States, but you can check with Amazon for sources for Bedrock Truths. But we do enjoy our listeners around the world. We get your feedback. I don't have time to answer everything, but we try to read everything we can. We appreciate you sending in through emails. And also we got a Facebook page called Dr. Ed Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics. So check out our Facebook page, like that. We try to put some stories we can't get on air every week. So check that out and be sure to like our Facebook page. And now let's get back to our conversation with Alan Dershowitz right here on webtalkradio.net. That's webtalkradio.net. I know we don't have much time. I do want to go ask you about Senator Warnock in Georgia and his what he's doing for Israel. What the left is to get elected. He have say, "Hey, I'm for Israel," but his past does not show that. How do you feel like he and even AOC and some of these new leftist socialists that are being elected, how are they stand to Israel? What's it make America's ally to Israel? Does it weaken our relationship with Israel, or have you seen enough yet to know?
Well, the vast majority of Americans understand that Israel is a true democracy and a true friend of the United States and has helped the United States. It's been very mutual.
Yes.
Together we have fought terrorism extraordinarily well. Together we have fought the Iranian nuclear facility very well. I think Israel and the United States stand for the same values, and most Americans stand for those values. It's only the extreme left, the Squad, AOC, and people like that hate Israel. People like Senator Sanders, ironically Jewish, who never found anything about Israel he liked. And the same is true of many others in the Squad and on the extreme left of the Democratic Party. So Joe Biden has been generally supportive of Israel with most Americans. So let's see what the newly elected senator from Georgia does. I keep an open mind. Everybody is entitled to a presumption that they will act properly. But if not, I will certainly oppose him. I'm a Democrat myself, but I know how to fight against Democrats who don't support the values that I support, including the values of the American-Israeli relationship, which is very important for both countries.
I absolutely agree. It's very important for both countries, and looking to the future, America has withstood Civil War, World Wars, Cold War, and yet there's some parts that seem to be falling apart now. What's your thought of the future here? The last question, are you confident in America's future? Or
well,
tell me.
You know, you talked about Israel. In Israel, they have a definition of a pessimist. The pessimist is somebody who says, things are so bad they can't possibly get worse. And the optimist says, yes, they can. Now, I think things could get worse, but I'm generally optimistic. I think the American people love liberty. The American people love freedom. We love our Constitution, the longest enduring Constitution in the history of the world. We will endure, but we can't be sitting back and let it happen. We have to fight back against the people, the woke generation, the left, the extremists on the right, extremists on all sides who would deprive us of freedom of speech and due process. And I think people, liberals, conservatives, Democrats, Republicans, ought to stand together against trying to violate our Constitution.
Well, Professor, I say a big amen. Thank you for coming on Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics. And the best 10 minutes podcast I think I've had. What a great interview for freedom of speech and our Constitution. Thank you for doing what you're doing. Don't let up.
I will. Thank you so much.
Well, that was the acclaimed attorney and known around the world, Alan Dershowitz, and we appreciate him coming on Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics. And I do want you to pick up The Case Against the New Censorship, his new book. Now, he's got quite a few books out, and they're all well written. But this case against the new censorship goes right along what we've been speaking about on this show for years. But especially, you go back and listen to our archives about how we're losing freedom of speech, and how it's really, like he said, it won't be easy to reverse that trend, but we have to do it. So go out there and get his book, The Case Against the New Censorship. And now to end up this week's show, I just want to remind everybody that we try to do what we call a crypto corner, and some of you want to listen to it, and some of you are not sure what we're talking about. We try not to go deep in the weeds, but I think it's very important for everyone, but especially for conservatives and independents and Republicans and conservative Democrats to really know what's going on with this new technology, the blockchain technology. So many people go, well, I don't want to learn something new. I don't understand it. You don't have to understand how it works, but it's very important to know that this is not a fad. Blockchain technology is changing the world, and it's very important for conservatives, young, middle-aged, old, everyone, to have a grasp. And so that's why we've added the Crypto Corner. That's why if you look on our website right here on Web Talk Radio, you'll see a link to Harmony. Harmony is one of the cryptocurrencies. It goes by the symbol ONE. It's called Harmony, but it's a blockchain that really integrates and is able to work with other blockchains. And it's on the beginning edges of it's just new technology that's fast and it's very inexpensive compared to what's out there right now, like Ethereum. And some people go, what's Harmony? What's Ethereum? What's Bitcoin? How's it compare? Well, go back and listen to some of our archive shows. You can see those on the website. When we do a show to give a broad scope of what blockchain technology is. We've had Brock Pierce on, and we've also, he helped found Tether and others worked, and we've had James Stroud on, and he founded his own coin and helped with his own coin. But we're not pushing coins. We're not giving any financial advice. We're just saying it's so important to know what's going on because this world is changing, and Republicans need to be on the thrust. Conservatives need to be on the thrust of the change because there's a lot of things that innovative people can wrap their minds around, wrap their arms around, and we will see new businesses. We will see new things created. We'll see communities coming together, and it needs to be led by smart people who understand what's going on. Not only that, but you can make new businesses. You can bring communities together using this new blockchain technology. So I just want you to understand it. And so in this week's Crypto Corner, I just want, if you don't quite understand it, if you're a new listener, you can go back to some of our archive shows, but make a point to better understand it because it's important for liberty and it's important for freedom. And if we're going to retain freedom of speech, if we're going to retain our Constitution that's served us so well, as Alan Dershowitz just talked about, if we're going to retain that and make America not only great again, but make it the best it's ever been, then conservatives must be on the cutting edge of what's going on in the blockchain community in this new innovative technology. And so make sure that you're up to date on it. You don't have to know how it works, but just don't put your head in the sand. We can't cede this to the liberals and the left-wingers. We got to know what's going on because we can change the world and once again lead the world and be in the place of freedom and liberty instead of everybody going, is America going into socialism? Is America going to be a Marxist country? Is it going to be so woke that everybody decides they want to be Marxist? I'm depending on you and me and us working together. Like I said, you don't have to become a Republican, but anybody that's against socialism, we have got to lock our arms together and say, America's too important, our Constitution's too important to let the extreme leftist, Marxist, socialist, and even the extreme right neo-Nazis. Neo-Nazis are socialist. They're fascist. And the left wing won't tell you that. They try to make them look like right-wingers. They're socialist. Okay? So let's stay together, stick together, and stand against the socialist, extreme left powers that are taking over the Biden administration. We must stay together, stick together, and that's why we keep doing a show each week. Tell others about it. Tell your friends and neighbors about Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics. We'll grow, you'll grow, and we will see more liberty, more freedom if we work together. And we will not only make America great again, we'll make America the best it's ever been. Thank you for listening. See you next week right here on Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics.
Thanks for joining us today, and remember to listen again next week for another edition of Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics. You can order Ed's new book, Bedrock Truths, by clicking on the book cover right in front of you on the screen, or visit DocHolliday.org. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next week.